Hello, beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we are your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So, this upcoming weekend is going to be a crazy one for us. Like we've been saying for the last couple of weeks, we are going to the City Grand Prix here in Nashville. It is the IndyCar race. It's the IndyCar season finale. And in the same weekend, what else do we have, Mary Catherine?
We have the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as well. So we are hitting two different types of motorsports.
Yeah.
We are going to be spitting out straight motorsport facts. No, I'm kidding. To be honest, I'm definitely super stoked about the IndyCar. I'm just like, because we haven't followed a full season of IndyCar, I'm worried I'm going to be overwhelmed by the difference. But I definitely think it's a good learning curve. I mean, it's in our backyard.
It's an oval.
It's an oval, which I think as someone who has, as a non-motorsport fan over a year ago, I did judge NASCAR and ovals, so I'm curious to see. I'm excited. I think that this is the closest we're gonna get, like, in our hometown to, like, an F1 race.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
To, like, any sort of big motorsport race. I believe it's the season ender, right?
It is. It's the season finale.
But then on the other side, we have, I didn't even realize that Monza was the end of the European leg, that there's no more of Europe. So we're heading to Azerbaijan, and we didn't watch this last year. So
this race was in the first half of the season, and it was one of the first 9 races, and we started watching at Canada last year. That was the first race that I watched. So I think just missed it basically.
Yeah. So I'm definitely pumped because I feel like this is one of those circuits that is always brought up a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of reference back to Baku, and we haven't seen it.
And given how interesting the F1 season is right now.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that I'm a little stressed about.
I never know who's going to win.
Is the fact that we'll be at IndyCar Live, but then there's going to be F1 stuff happening as well. It's going to be our brains are going to be so overwhelmed, and I feel like this is going to be that moment where we get how busy weekends are for these people.
Yeah. Well, so I'm pretty sure that the F1 qualifying is on Saturday at 9 a.m. and then IndyCar's first practice is on Saturday at 10 a.m. for us. So we'll basically be either on our way to the track or already at the track and essentially watching it on our phones if we want to. We might be a little bit delayed on posting stuff just because A, I don't know how good the service is, where the track is, and then B, don't want to kill my battery on posting stuff. I will be bringing a extra battery just in case because I don't trust myself to not use my phone. But it's going to be a crazy weekend.
Yeah, so to add to the craziness, we're going to do a little bit of a different get ready with me. So, Azerbaijan is a newer race on the calendar, so there's not as much history and background, and we're getting closer to the end of the season, so we got to finish out the last bit of team principles. Mm-hmm. So, because we'll be talking about 2 races at the end of at the beginning of our next episode, we'll talk about Azerbaijan and do a rundown of IndyCar. We're actually going to skip around a little bit, and this weekend we're going to do the track rundown and just a few little tidbits about Azerbaijan and the course. And then we are going to go into VCARB's team principal, Laurent Mekies. And so just a quick little blurb on him and his career and how he got to become a team principal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what about you?
I am just going to go over some info for the IndyCar weekend. I'm going to go over the schedule, some track info, some stuff that's going on, and kind of what...
Who are we cheering for?
I think Pato.
Okay.
I feel like that makes sense for us.
Yeah, I feel like it tracks.
But he's not really... I'll talk about it when I get to IndyCar. Yeah. But watching an oval should be interesting because, again, it's,
Something we've never experienced.
yeah, no.
We've never even
And
watched, to be really honest with you guys. Like, I think at the beginning of the season, we were like, we're going to try to keep up with IndyCar as we're doing F1.
I've like
And
followed
then,
it online. It's just really difficult to watch both.
yeah, it's really difficult to watch both. And then, like we've said in every episode, it's just been a
We have
wild
more of a
one.
life this year than we did last year.
Yeah, when we started this, we were lonely and
We weren't
needed a
lonely.
hobby.
We did need a hobby, though.
But anything else?
I think that's it. Let's get into it.
I'll be honest with you guys. I feel like we're pretty candid on this podcast. I did not personally really know where Azerbaijan was on the planet. I had like a general idea, but just for those that don't know where the country is, some of its neighbors include Georgia, Armenia, Turkey, and Iran.
Yeah.
Or Iran. So just so you know what part of the world we're in, which is why I didn't realize we had finished the European leg. Sir Lewis posted this like long
Sir Lewis.
this like long like ode to like the team and
Yeah, thanking
Yeah.
the team that it was the last race he had with Mercedes in Europe, and like the motorhome that he had there. It was
Yeah.
the last time he was going to be in it, blah, blah, blah.
But yeah, so we moved on from Europe and we are now in Azerbaijan. So the official race name for the Grand Prix is the Formula One Qatar Airways Azerbaijan Grand Prix 2024. This circuit name for this race is the Baku City Circuit, and for those that don't know, it is a street track. It is within I believe Baku is Azerbaijan's capital. So the first Grand Prix, it's relatively new, was held in 2016. And the circuit length is 6.003 kilometers. The number of laps that they're doing is 51. And then the race distance in total is 306.049 kilometers. I was shocked to hear there are 20 turns on this track. Like when you look at a map of it, it's a lot. I feel like we've kind of been in the low teens recently. And then the lap record was placed in 2019 by Charles Leclerc, obviously in a Ferrari. And he did the lap in 1:43.009 seconds. So these laps are looking to be like based off of lap records. They're going to be about 20 to 25 seconds longer than what we saw last weekend, which I think the laps were clocking in around 1:20, just so you can kind of, understand the distance. There are 2 DRS zones on this map. So DRS detection zone 1 is right before turn 2, and activation is between turns 2 and 3. And then DRS detection zone 2 is right before turn 20, and then as per usual, I feel like I say this every week, activation is between that start-finish straight. So the first race here in 2016 was actually known as the 2016 European Grand Prix, and then in 2017 it changed names and began hosting as the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I'm not really sure why they named it that in 2016, but that's just what it was.
They named it the European Grand Prix when it's not in Europe.
I don't know. That's what it said. I don't know if it was like a roundup of like that was like their championship city or whatever.
I wonder if Azerbaijan is that.
I think it's like Turkey, where it's like that,
in between of like Europe and
the Middle
Asia.
East and Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like, because I'm pretty sure Armenia is European.
I think so.
But then Turkey is in the middle. Yeah, it's like on that borderline. Okay, continue.
I don't really have much more on the track. Like I said, it's relatively new. I'm excited. We haven't had a street track yet, right? Have we had one yet this season?
I'm trying to think.
China wasn't. Anyways, I'm excited. I think
I don't know if we have.
I can't remember.
Okay, hold on. Give me 2 seconds, people. I need to look back in my notes. I feel like we totally have had. Okay, last week was Monza. What was the week before? Where were we?
Well, we just had Dutch, Belgium, Hungary.
Hungary. What else was it? So many notes. British. We're almost there. We're getting there. I just wrote race. Wow, that's so Austrian.
I don't think we
race.
have him.
I don't think we have, actually. You know, all the people that were complaining that we have so many street races, and
I wonder if it's like people are more complaining of the way the schedule works, that it's like they're not sprinkled throughout. It feels like they're all kind of shoved into
Monaco.
the
We've had
Oh,
Monaco.
Monaco, no shit.
Canada
Yeah.
kind of is because it's not.
It's like it's like a
It's like a
park.
yeah,
But this is like you're driving through the city.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Miami.
Monaco.
We had Miami.
Oh my god, wow.
We're really. It's been such a long season already that we're just so confused.
Anyways, that's really all I have. So, do you want me to get into the team principal?
Yes. Okay. Who is Laurent Mekies, Mary Catherine?
Okay, so I just want to preface it like I always do with the team principals. Then no one comes at me. I don't think anyone would, but this is just like a high level overview of their career and how they kind of like their steps and how they got to become. If there's been drama in their past or anything like I don't know. I'm not talking about their personal lives.
None of our business.
Not that like he has anything. Anyways, sorry.
Still, if we're just looking into their career, guys.
Into their career to kind of figure out how maybe some of you could maybe end up here one day. So Laurent Mekies was born in France on April 28th, 1977, and according to RB's site, Mekies and his father were both crazy about cars. His father was just like, I think they called it like a car head, very much just obsessed with it, and so in turn, he was kind of raised around this. His father took him to the 1988 French Grand Prix when he was 11, and he was hooked. Laurent went on to study mechanical engineering at the ESTACA school in Paris, which I'm pretty sure is where Fred might have studied. I can't remember.
Were they classmates? I don't know what the age
don't
difference is,
think
to be honest.
they were.
Okay.
I think Laurent is
Never
like,
mind.
oh, yeah.
I don't know.
And he completed his final year. So he was in Paris and then he completed his final year at Loughborough University in the UK, which, according to RB's like bio and quotes, they were like, this is known as like a finishing school for F1 engineers. So I don't know if Loughborough University just is kind of one of those like feeder schools, but
Maybe.
look it out. Look out for it, people, if you want to get into this world. In 2000, Mekies was a trackside intern for the French F3 team Signature, and this internship helped him gain a position as an engine engineer for Asia Tech. Asia Tech supplied the Arrows team with their engines, allowing Mekies to get an even closer look to like F1, and that's kind of like his first professional relationship with F1. He was there for a year, and then in 2001, Mekies would join Minardi as a race engineer and stay there for the next 12 years. In 2006, Minardi became Scuderia Toro Rosso, and Mekies continued to climb the ladder, being appointed chief engineer. In 2014, Mekies switched sides, and I didn't know this about him, but he was actually a part of the FIA, and he was a safety director. This role is stated as being in charge of all safety and medical matters for the federation across all of its championships. And then in 2017, he was promoted to F1 Deputy Race Director, adding to his duties. So I think that this was like a more focus on top of everything he was doing as safety director. I think this had more of a focus on single-seater racing. He was in this role until 2018 when he would switch back to the team side and he would go on to join Ferrari as their sporting director. In 2019, he was promoted to the head of track and performance area for Ferrari, and then in 2021, he was promoted again to the role of racing director. He was there for 2 years, and then in the summer of 2023, he left Ferrari, and ultimately it was announced at the beginning of 2024 that he would be the team principal for VCARB. So, I think that's probably the fastest rundown we've ever done for the team principals.
Yeah.
There really wasn't like a ton on like who he was, his involvement. But
I mean, if he was racing director, he had a huge job.
Yeah, he had a huge job. But what I'm saying is that like they just kind of
he did his job.
Like he did his job and he got promoted. He did his job and he got promoted. Like
it wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah, and also there wasn't like a ton of movement. Like he was at Minardi for 12 years, and then he was at the FIA for 2014 to 2018. That's 4 years. Then he was,
Yeah.
So I think I didn't know a ton about him. I didn't know that he had the FIA side,
No, I
but
didn't know that part. Honestly, I remember when he was announced as team principal and it was announced that he was going from Ferrari to whatever it is now, VCARB.
VCARB.
In my mind, I'm like to Toro Rosso, and then I'm like wrong name. Anyways, um, and then now at this point in the season, I had completely forgot he'd been a Ferrari. To be honest,
Well, yeah, so that's the thing too is that I think he wasn't I think the team principals really do become like the faces of the F1 team sometimes, besides the drivers, obviously. And I think through Drive to Survive and just like social media, some of the engineers and some of the guys in the pit wall have become more like recognizable.
yeah,
But I think too, like, I mean, think of how many of the FIA officials you can name besides like the two head dudes
I
of like
can't.
the FIA and F1. So like that's the thing. Can you name the current safety director?
No,
So I think a lot of these
which is probably
guys
bad.
too, but I think a lot of these guys too, like there's some that have the quick like success. Like I think, you have people like I don't want to say quick success, but like large financial successes like Toto Wolff, almost like Christian Horner. But then I think of like this career, James Voll's career, where they're kind of like loyal for a huge amount of years. They're kind of just in the rafters and then they're given the opportunity to be team principal. So
Yeah,
like I think one thing to note for anyone that is enjoying this series is like obviously money helps. Money does help. I think most of these people probably have lived a very from the outside looking in comfortable life. I don't know. I'm not their financial advisors. But I think it goes to show that like you don't have to be the big flashy investor. Like you can be an engineer who climbs his like way
you
up
can just go to school
and just like get
and do
involved, do
well
your
and
job,
get the right
get
job.
noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it just like none of these guys, like a lot of them started in the early 2000s and it's 2024. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I think it's also really interesting to see how many of the engineers have become team principals.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit about someone I personally knew absolutely nothing about besides his past of Ferrari. So yeah, amazing what you can know when you quickly look into someone. Um but I think we only
The internet
have
is an amazing place.
yeah, I think we only have 3 or 4 more team principals. I think it's 3 cuz I don't know, does Sauber have a team principal? Have they?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I have to look into that again. I've said that like 3 times this season. But yeah, so for some of the newer
Did we
races,
even do Alpines when Bruno was in charge and now they have somebody else?
yeah, maybe I'll do like a half.
I don't understand that team.
Yeah. I don't think they understand themselves, but
No.
yeah. So we'll hopefully we'll be able to not hopefully we will be able to wrap up the last of the team principals. We do have a few like newer races on the schedule, and those are just a bit harder to find like historical ties to, especially because they're in places that are relatively new to the F1 world.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep cracking on, but that's the VCARB team principal, Laurent Mekies.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I am going to get into IndyCar now. All right, guys. So, like we've said, we've never been to an IndyCar race before. We've never been to a motorsport race before. So this is going to be a very exciting weekend for us.
Yeah, the only thing we've seen live was the Red Bull showcase that went to Nashville, Chicago, and somewhere else last year.
Yeah, they just did something
Like,
else. I think like in Houston and DC drove it.
yeah, so
Which I would have loved to see DC drive it.
yeah,
But
so
we did get to see Daniel Ricciardo drive
yeah,
a car, which is pretty cool.
but that's really the only live vehicle we've
Well,
seen.
last year when IndyCar, so just to give some history on the race here in Nashville, there was a race here in Nashville back, I think it was in the 2000s. There was a race here, but it was at the Nashville Super Speedway. And Then they took a break in like 2009, from like 2009 to last year, the year before. It was like 2 years ago, I
2
think.
years ago, yeah, because we've
And
been through two.
yeah, so 2 years ago they finally came back, and it was a street race, and it was downtown Nashville.
And honestly, the first year it was like, oh, so annoying. But last year it was really cool because we could sit when we lived in an apartment in the city. You could sit outside and you could
And
just hear
here,
them because it would go off of the river
yeah,
because they would cross from one side of Nashville to the other because the Cumberland River crosses through the city. And the pits would all be by like the Titan Stadium.
yeah,
But as we love to ruin all things that are great, construction is currently happening in the Nashville Titan Stadium because it's
they're
hella
moving it,
old and they're moving
and
it.
it's
And
a whole project.
it's a
You
whole
can look it up
Riverside
if you
thing.
want, to.
Yeah.
But the original plan was they were going to change it this year, so
And they were
that
gonna go.
the end was going to be straight down Broadway, which would have been kind of cool.
I do think logistically,
It would have been a shit
it
show.
would have been a fucking nightmare.
It would have been horrible.
Yeah,
But
because
it would have been cool.
yeah,
It was like the IndyCar equivalent, the country equivalent of going down the Las Vegas Strip.
yeah.
It would have been, in theory, pretty cool. But because of all the construction, because we are a growing city, they have decided to move it to the Nashville Superspeedway, and that is in Lebanon, Tennessee, which, if you're listening to this and you are attending the race and you've never been to Nashville, I highly recommend you don't get a hotel downtown, get a hotel closer to Lebanon, because Lebanon is not a short Uber ride away. It is a good 45-minute to an hour drive away from the
Is
city.
it similar to like the Austin track? Like Coda is not.
I
in
think Coda is actually
Austin?
closer to the city than the Lebanon Speedway is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Also, don't make fun of us for saying Lebanon. It's not Lebanon. In Tennessee, it's Lebanon.
Yeah, for some reason. I don't know why. But anyways, there's a lot of things that are going on downtown. So I think I've seen some people online say they're staying in Nashville, like in the city downtown, for like Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday morning they're driving to a hotel closer to the Speedway and then staying there for Saturday night, which to me that makes sense. But this is the last race of the season for IndyCar. Just the weekend schedule, just so you guys can kind of have it. Saturday, we've got the first practice at 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m.
And this is
11:30
Central
a.m.
Standard Time.
Yeah, this is all in Central. So 10 a.m. to 11:30, and then there's qualifying from 1:15 to 2:15. And then there's Highline practice, which is basically 30 minutes before the last practice session. They send a few cars out to just get rubber laid down on the higher aspects of the oval. So that's from 4:15 to 4:45, and then the final practice is from 5 to 6. So overall, the entire day is from 10 to 6. Indy Next is also going to be there, and if you know anything about Indy Next, you know Jamie Chadwick is driving in Indy Next, so it'll be really cool to get to see her race. And then on Sunday, the race is at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, and it looks like the doors are closed, like the gates to the place are closed by 7 p.m. There is a lot of stuff that's going on throughout the day at the actual track.
Yeah, because it's like a music event too.
Yeah, there's something with Diplo going on.
Because it's run by Big Machine, which is like a label and publishing company here. And I was talking to one of my like new coworkers, and she was saying that they used to like make the publishing and the finance people like work the day job. Like if you're big, like you'd have to like volunteer hours. And so
That's kind of cool.
yeah, so I wonder if we'll see anyone like work-wise.
Maybe. Honestly, we might.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that's going on Friday downtown is the Hy-Vee battle on Broadway, which basically is just a bunch of the pit crews are going to compete for a share of a $50,000 purse. So whoever can like have the fastest pit stop or whatever, that's going to be on Broadway. So there are going to be Indy cars actually on Broadway on Friday. So I think on Friday, I think there's a bunch of stuff that's happening downtown for it. I'm pretty sure if you go to like the Big Machine Distillery, you'll probably see a bunch of stuff going on as well. There is like a motor museum here, which I'm pretty sure they're probably doing stuff there as well from what I've seen.
Yeah.
There's just overall a bunch of things that are going on in the city throughout the whole
There's a
weekend.
ton of like billboards all over the city. If you look it up, I'm sure there's like
A
a
schedule of
schedule of
things.
events that's significantly more fleshed out than
Yeah,
us.
I'm just letting y'all know the
No,
things
no,
that
no.
we
I'm just
might be
yeah.
attending. I don't know. Okay. So the standings going into this race weekend. Also, if you want to understand how IndyCar works, go to, I will link it right here, our IndyCar 101 episode. It's a very brief understanding of IndyCar because we've never been to a race before. We might have some edits to that after this race weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let you know if our understanding is correct or not. So that will be an interesting thing. Okay, standings going into this race weekend. I only wrote down the top 10 because throughout the entire season, there's been a total of 42 drivers. So a lot more than F1. So I wasn't going to write down all 42. So I only wrote down the top 10. Okay, so number one, we have Alex Palou, who has 525 points. Then number two, we have Will Power with 492 points. In third, Scott McLaughlin with 475 points. In fourth, Colton Herta with 462 points. In fifth, Scott Dixon, 443 points. Which, fun fact, Scott Dixon won this race 3 times when it was here in the 2000s.
Oh.
So he's been here for a minute. It was like 2007, 2008, and 2009. I was like, damn, Scott, you've been here for so long. But that's what I think in IndyCar happens. You like join a team and you kind of stay there for forever. I think I remember hearing Marcus Armstrong say something like that, like it becomes a family unit.
That's nice. I mean, you're traveling all over the states.
Yeah.
Like,
So in sixth, we have Pato O'Ward with 419 points. In seventh, Kyle Kirkwood with 384 points, which, if you remember, Kyle Kirkwood is apparently one of Logan Sargent's best friends. There's a whole drama there with that. In eighth, we have Joseph Newgarden with 365 points, which he is a Nashville native. In ninth, we have Alexander Rossi with 350 points. And in 10th, we have Santino Ferrucci with 339 points. So,
who was do you know who the IndyCar winner was last year?
for the overall,
Mm-hmm.
Alex Palou.
Okay.
And it's going to be, he's going to win it again this year. He's in first, obviously, by, 33 points. So basically, Palou needs to finish ninth or better to secure the championship. So we think that that's probably going to happen. It would be difficult for him to lose it, but you never know. And I saw something online that said Pato has been not finishing great for the last like 5 races or so. Or he's not been qualifying. He's had in the last like 5 to 6 races, he hasn't had the best performance. But I think he did win like the intro race for the Milwaukee Mile or whatever. But then I think he's been having like a tough other couple of races. So I think his overall standings have gone down a bit. But yeah, only once in the last 11 years has a championship winner changed in the final race. So basically, it's almost a guarantee when you go into the final race that you're going to end up winning the championship if you just perform how you usually have been.
Okay.
Consistency is key, obviously, in everything. So Pirelli does not do the tires for IndyCar like they do for F1. Their tires are done by Firestone. And Firestone is actually going to be bringing alternate compound tires. So each driver will be required to use one set of primary compound tires and 2 sets of alternate compound tires throughout the weekend. They receive significantly more tires than just those, but that's just like kind of like how in an F1 race you're required to use 2 different compounds of tires in a race. It's very similar to kind of like how that situation works.
Okay.
Okay, so some info on the Nashville Superspeedway. It is a 1.33 mile D-shaped track. The banking, so there's a bunch here. So there's in turns 1 through 4, there are 14 degrees of banking. There's 9 degrees in the front straightaway and 6 degrees in the back straightaway. So different angles of banking throughout the whole place. The surface is made of concrete, obviously. in case you didn't know. And this race is going to be 206 laps, and it's a total of 267.8 miles. So I believe it is estimated to take about 2-ish hours, unless something wild happens.
Okay.
I am really interested to see an IndyCar pit stop in person.
That would be cool.
I'm very intrigued to watch it because I mean it's so different from an F1 pit stop. So I think I'm very excited about that.
I think my favorite pit stop still is the World Endurance pit stops, and the guys jump on top of the car and have to clean the
Oh, I love it so
I just
much.
love the way that man just like plops onto the hood of the car.
It's so funny to watch.
It's
And when they
amazing.
have to switch people out of the car too,
Yeah.
it's
But
crazy. Well,
yeah.
and I do love how in Le Mans they have to carry a toolbox with them in the car and they have to know how to fix it if the car breaks down or something happens. They have to know what to do.
Chaotic good, man.
I know. Imagine you were to tell Charles Leclerc to sorry,
Carry a wrench.
no offense, Charles, but I can't picture you using a wrench to fix anything in a car.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine it. I'm sure that they do know what they're doing because they've been around it their whole lives.
Yeah, and so many of them had like dads, uncles, cousins like as their mechanic in the karting days.
Yeah.
That, like I would assume they all know how to like quick fix things.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's probably just like an F1 car. You probably don't like. I don't think any of them are sitting there and attaching things and tweaking
Absolutely
things
not.
themselves.
I mean, that's how it was back in the day, but not
But not anymore.
nowadays. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of a quick overview of what's going to be going on this upcoming weekend in Nashville. I didn't want to go too in depth because, again, I am nervous our understanding of IndyCar is not quite accurate, and I don't want to give you guys bad information.
Valid.
So we are going to be paying as close attention as possible. And if you are going to be at the race, please let us know on social media, slide into our DMs, anything, comment on stuff. We will be there. I'm going to be trying to make some friendship bracelets in case we do run into people. So I'll be making that today. That's one of my tasks after I finish editing this is to make some friendship bracelets. And fingers crossed that we have the similar weather that we did this weekend.
Yeah.
Next weekend. It's been a glorious 75 degrees here and breezy. And if it's like that next weekend, we're going to have a great weekend. Because if it's 100 degrees like it has been in Nashville for the last 2 weeks, for the last 2 months, it's not going to be a fun experience at all whatsoever. Not looking forward to it.
How early do you think you have to get there for the race?
On race day, on Sunday?
Because there's like stuff that happens before.
I think it all just depends on how early we want to leave our dogs.
True. Well, we'll plan that off podcast.
Yeah, we have to figure out how to arrange our dog walks and leaving for the race. But we figured since we are going, we might as well go all out and go crazy. So we actually decided to splurge and get the seats with a seat back because we're old and have bad backs.
Yeah, I blame old athletic injuries. But yeah, it's a bit longer, and we've done quite a few college football games in backless bleachers.
Yeah. And usually those I'm drunk for, so I wasn't realizing the pain I was in.
We were also significantly younger.
I'm not that old. I'm only 25. What are you talking about?
But
says the person who literally crossing my knees at the movie theater. I was like, ow, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was
I'm
like,
in pain.
you are the one who's in more pain.
Yeah, because I have bad knees. My back can handle a bit more, but it's not what it used to be, guys. Anyways, there's 2 news things that we're going to talk about in our final thoughts. So we're going to get to that now. We did talk about this last episode, how Kevin Magnussen was going to be getting a race ban. I'm pretty sure I can confirm that the points do reset after the race ban, but Ollie Behrman is confirmed to be driving in Kevin Magnussen's seat for Haas for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So it's kind of nice. It's a nice little practice round for him. And since the points reset, I want to see what Menace Magnussen is going to do for the rest of the season.
think it's a nice full weekend for Ollie, especially with the team that he's going to join. I mean, nothing against Ferrari, but like he he had a weekend with Ferrari. He's had a full F1 weekend, but I think that there's something kind of like nice. Obviously, it's horrible that Kevin Magnussen isn't able to be there, but I think it's nice that like there's like a bit of camaraderie that can hopefully come out of this.
I've seen a lot of people say that total, like the 2 points that were added to him, were not needed. That it was a very harsh penalty that he was given.
Yeah. I mean, it was gonna happen eventually.
Yeah.
I'm shocked it took this long for Kevin Magnussen because of the boundaries he was pushing earlier in the season, but um, I mean, I think he kind of sees the writing on the wall. He's just
Oh
kind of
yeah.
enjoying it, trying to have fun. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good opportunity for Ollie, so I'm really excited to see it. I know that there's been like a little bit of negativity towards Ollie and his current standings in F2, because they haven't been as strong. But I don't know. I think that this will give him a lot of experience that like some of the
I
other
think it's good because he's
rookies.
going to get basically a practice race
Yeah,
before everybody else does next
yeah.
year.
So
Because there's only so much you can learn from the car in
in
a
an
practice session,
FP1, yeah.
but now he basically gets a practice race.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see, I know the car changes every season, but just like feels, vibes, changes. I'm sure it helps the overall team as well to understand the driver.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that this is a benefit. And think, like, yeah, Ollie did have the weekend with Ferrari, but like none of that data, none of that info, like Haas has. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a really good opportunity and a good weekend for him. So
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
excited.
The other news thing I wanted to mention is Theo Porcher. So like you mentioned earlier when you were talking about how like money does help when you're trying to move up in the rankings of like engineering and stuff like that. Like we know, it is very helpful in the world of being a driver as well. And
Sponsorships are king.
Theo Porcher is the most recent F2 champion. He won last year and he did some IndyCar racing this year. I don't know if he is anymore, but he did do some IndyCar racing this year. And now he said publicly that he is having a very hard time finding money and sponsors and a very difficult time finding a seat. Um, I don't know if this has happened in the past before where like we just have the older guys in sports who just haven't retired yet. And
Do you think it's the amount of people in the sport now that the sport has grown bigger than ever before? I mean, it's still slightly inaccessible in terms of expense for the everyday Joe, but I think karting racing has become so much more accessible that the pool of athletes is just, I mean, I'm saying this and Theo's the F2 champion. So it
that's the
is.
thing. It's like
It's
these
not like I'm
people.
talking about, bottom of the barrel kid who,
Yeah. These people are driving in F2 and hope to become the F2 champion and think, oh, okay, if I win F2, then it's almost a guarantee seat in F1 soon or a seat in IndyCar or something. But then they're sitting there and waiting and they don't have anything because people aren't retiring, which is a choice that they decide to make. But also, I mean, like I said, Scott Dixon won those races in Nashville in like 2007. So there's been IndyCar drivers that have been driving for forever.
well, and I think I've said this before, and I was watching one of our earlier episodes where it was talking about, I think it was our Juan Manuel Fangio episode, where I kind of said, like, the market used to be like quicker, but I do think that there was always like a Senna every generation and a Juan Manuel Fangio generation where these guys would be on teams for 5 to 7 years or they would be on the market, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And then there was always one seasoners where they would get a seat, they'd be one season, and then I mean there's an entire website of like forgotten F1 drivers.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're just seeing again, I think there's a weird 5-year group of guys who kind of got stuck that really didn't get the opportunity out of F3, F2. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it all?
Um, I think it's weird that I mean, because we're still relatively newer to motorsport, I just don't know if this has happened before where we have like a group of people who just didn't get seats and they'll never move up. Um,
Because Theo Pourchaire's not alone. Like, in terms of
no.
successful drivers,
I was afraid Jack Doohan was never going to get a seat.
it was him, Jack Doohan, Fred Vesty, um,
Robert
Robert
Schwartzman.
Schwartzman, Arthur Leclerc to an extent, um, just because of name, but there's this like group of guys who they were almost like a year or two younger
Who's the
than.
Aston Martin one?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name right
But
now.
you know who I'm talking about. He's one of the reserve drivers for Aston, and he isn't going to get a seat.
Well, yeah, and they just are unfortunately reserve drivers for, and like that's it.
Yeah, it's just weird because it's like there's an entire couple of years where these people are not getting seats. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's strange.
I wonder if
I also
I
want to, when it comes to sponsors and money, I wonder if everyone has kind of gone to the same sponsors for forever. And now because there's so many people that are in motorsports now who are getting sponsors, that it might be more difficult to get sponsors in the sense that like this one company is not going to sponsor like 5 people. And so like for the girls right now, it might be a little bit easier to get a sponsor in a sense because you can go to companies like Charlotte Tilbury and get them to sponsor
yeah,
you
companies
because
that haven't like Elf that haven't been
they
utilized.
haven't been utilized, which in theory technically the guys could do also, but I could see the makeup companies are more going to go for the girls, that they're going to sponsor those ones instead. But yeah, no, I wonder if it's just like they are going for the same kind of companies all the time, and like why would they sponsor so many people?
I genuinely don't know how the sponsorships work. Like, I don't know how any of that works. I know that there are certain people that um bring in a lot of sponsors, which has helped certain teams, but I don't know. It's strange when we think about the like millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars that like some of the F1 guys can be charged in a weekend, and then you hear about like the F2 champion is like, I've got no money. Like,
Yeah.
there's no money for me to find a seat. And it's just, again, it's this, the extreme of this sport, I think, is like something I always forget is how like money, it always comes back to money
Yeah.
when it comes to F1 and when it comes to like getting a spot in F1. And I think it's funny whenever something happens on the internet when people like bring up nepotism or people's parents like spending money to get them seats or whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, if someone's parents can afford it, but like isn't it the same as someone coming in with like 25 sponsors? Like, it's all money at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
they have to come with a personality, a brand, and that's insane. You know, can you imagine if you told like freaking Alberto Ascari, Phil Hill, all these guys, like, hey, like, where's your $100,000 sponsorship? You
Yeah.
know, and I'm curious because I know, like when did sponsorships become such? And they've been around forever because I'm trying to think about like the 90s and the Marlboro years. Like, I think of the 80s. Like, whenever I think of motorsport, American motorsport, even like in like I think of sponsorships.
Yeah.
I think of the you know, the racing suits with all of the patches of sponsors. So you might be right. Like, have we faced a point where like a driver who was as successful as Theo was just like SOL?
I'm interested to see if if there will ever be a rule of like you only have so many years in F1. Like after a certain amount of time, like then you're up.
I can't imagine they would do that though, because think of all the guys that have retired or come back, or you know, like yeah, I don't know.
Or there might be, I would be interested to see if there's ever a rule of like you have to have a rookie driver every
Few
3 years.
years. with the amount of seats that were open and the amount of drivers that I feel like the teams weren't really thrilled with, I'm shocked we didn't have more rookies. Like, I'm shocked that there was not more of a conversation.
I mean, we still don't know who has the other VCARB seat.
Yeah, or the Sauber.
I think the Sauber is going to be Valtteri,
Yeah.
and then VCARB I think is going to be Liam Lawson.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because I think as Isaac Hajar he's a Red Bull junior, and I think he is up there in the F2 standings right now. And if he were to win the F2 season this year, he obviously can't go back. So Red Bull, I could see them doing their classic, okay, you've won F2, let's send you to Super Formula, have one more year in the juniors, and we'll have a few more years in the juniors, and then you'll come up to Red Bull. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I'm also curious to see, we've talked about the car and the regulations changing in 2026, but I'm curious to see if we're going to see a lot of driver movement. Yes, we just had a very big year of driver movement, but I wonder with the new regulations, if we're going to see, like, it's a new car, it's a new vibe. I wonder if it's going to be a make or break for some drivers.
I think it could be.
So we'll see, but it's a shame. I mean, it sucks to see someone who's so successful kind of in this really like horrible position.
Yeah.
But I mean, think of all of our friends who've sent out hundreds of job applications, you know.
Oh, no, that's true.
It's like, I'm not trying to sit here and like dismiss Theo Porcher's struggles, but I think, how can we relate to them, because we're not dealing with these hundreds of thousands
yeah, no,
of
this is literally
sponsorships. This is
just
the equivalent
difficulty
of like,
finding a job on a more public, large scale.
and it's just sad. Like, you don't want to see anyone, and these guys are so young, and this is all they know.
I think that's the problem that I have, is that they're so young, this is all they know.
And so many of them got pulled out of school. Some of them, like, you know, like, I think about...
It's like the equivalent of when you see, like, a football or basketball player do 1 year of college, then go into the NBA or the NFL, get injured in their first season, they didn't finish their degree, and then they're never going to play their sport ever again.
And it's like, what do they do now?
Yeah, it's basically that. Yeah. Of, like, what do they do now if they can't ever find a seat?
Yeah.
Especially if they're not coming from, like, your rich family, especially if they are, like, they're not, like, a paid driver.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, I think, in the next 10 to 15 years to kind of see the backgrounds of all the drivers, to see how everyone comes up, if it continues and this money kind of gets you places, or if we're going to see, like, and I think
we're going to see the other parts of the other aspects of motorsport. I think we're going to see them rise and be way more successful, because I think they're starting to realize if you can't get a seat in F1 a year after F2, you're probably never going to get a seat.
Yeah, you can't wait in their afters forever.
No. Like, as much as people would love Mick Schumacher to be in F1 again, him going to WEC was the smartest decision for his career.
Yeah. You can't... There's a moment when you have to have reality in the dream.
Yeah.
And it really sucks as an adult. Like, it's that decision of, like, I can't sit here and waste the rest of my life hoping for something that is most likely never going to happen. And I think that, again, knowing that
gotta get a big girl job.
I also think I can't imagine having to come to that decision after starting something so young. I mean, these kids were little when they started driving.
Oh, yeah.
And I think about, like, the decision to walk away from rowing in college, and I'd only been doing it for 5 years. You know, like, that shattered me to come to that decision to leave the sport. But it's like, and I'm not saying that that's what these guys are going to end up doing, but it's like, how do you sit there and come to terms with, you're not going to the Olympics, you're not going to F1, you're not going to the NFL.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, that is a decision that so many of us had to deal with. You're not making it to Broadway, you're not going to be on the television show, but it's just,
it sucks no matter who it is.
Yeah, and I think because, again, it's such a small pool of drivers that these personalities and these people are so publicized that you do get a little, like, tied to them.
Yeah, you start to support them.
So I'm just curious to see if we're going to see more drivers outspoken because of Theo.
I think they should.
And I hope they should. I
Yeah.
hope they would.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's all the news that's really going on right now in the motorsport world. Like I said before, I'm making some friendship bracelets for the Music City Grand Prix for IndyCar. So if you see us, make sure to stop us. And if I have any friendship bracelets left, I'll give one to you. Or we can trade. That would be so fun. But yeah, we hope to see some of y'all at the race this upcoming weekend. And then after that, just give us a couple of days to get the races, the next podcast up, so we can go over Azerbaijan and IndyCar, because it's going to be a lot. And I don't know if we're going to have the time to watch F1 during the IndyCar weekend. So give us a few days and we'll be able to get that up for y'all. So, yeah, that's it.
that's all I have.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.